the Brahma Viharas, I'm going to title this An Atmosphere of Compassion. So I want to continue the Brahma Viharas with compassion, talked about as an immeasurable state of heart. And in this teaching, which is commonly referred to, it's described through an analogy, the trembling of the heart in response to suffering. So this is one of the classical analogies of compassion. And I think it's also important to speak about how that trembling can change the atmosphere around us. The atmosphere, like the air we breathe within it, it can be known from the subtle to the grand. So starting close to home, speaking about compassion feels especially personal today because it's my birthday. And there's really something meaningful to me about teaching on a birthday. Because a birthday, it can easily, be just a day of self-reference, how old am I? How old am I? What have I done with my life? What remains unfinished? It's so sweet to see those hearts coming. And I found myself saying, oh, and even little birthday celebrations. Yes. Zoom is a fun place to be sometimes. Um, I found myself saying, teaching today feels like a form of compassion. And then I thought, really, Linda? Really? Is that so? Because often we make these statements to ourselves and then we question them. I've been feeling unwell off and on this week, as many of you know, and I've had quite a bit of solitary time. And teaching is one of the ways of extending relationships outwards with spiritual friends. I feel like I'm saying and showing that, especially with all the uncertainty, with our aging, joy, confusion, our vulnerability, I'm committed to sharing a path with you all, my Dharma friends, spiritual friends. And maybe that's one of the kind of a hidden or more subtle qualities of compassion is that it interrupts an atmosphere of isolation. I was starting to feel really isolated, and thinking about compassion in this way just kind of helped open that up for me. And what I appreciate about in reflective meditation is that compassion isn't really, just a state to achieve or something to radiate outward. It is part of an atmosphere of reflection and inquiry. And one of the clearest places we can observe this is in the language that we use towards ourselves and the way we feel about ourselves. I think many people discover that a meditation practice has or reveals an internal climate that we've never fully noticed before, and it changes all the time. But there is a kind of atmosphere or climate, internal climate that we live with. And in that climate, how do we speak to ourselves? How do we feel the mix of emotions in our inner climates? Our minds still comment on so many things in our experience. So compassion seems to move into the foreground when I hear this voice differently. Um, these voices, this commenting, not that they eliminate the doubt or critique or assessment completely of these voices, because I really do think reflective meditation is not about a passive approval of everything that goes on in our minds. But compassion helps change the tone. Um, it carries a wish to assist and help and not make things harder or add salt to my already existing wounds or to the world's wounds. And I refer to a modern definition here. Compassion is an emotional response to suffering that includes a desire to help, relieve, or respond to that suffering. So in our practice, we start with kindness and curiosity. And I feel like these are the seeds of all the Brahma Viharas. And then we get to see how they grow. And I've seen compassion be one of the outgrowths, wanting to be useful, wanting to be helpful, wanting to offer assistance, and to respond when I or we feel the trembling of our hearts. And I'll say this too, even when we can't directly act upon that tremble, um, feeling it and somehow integrating it into our heartbeat. No, integrating, I wrote this, I thought it was kind of clever. Feeling it and somehow integrating this tremble of our heartbeat into a situation seems important. And being kind to ourselves when we don't experience compassion, but something else instead. Because this is another thing I thought. I'm saying I think a lot, but I think many practitioners, myself included, carry hidden idea that we should always move closer to pain, closer to impermanence, closer to that which is hard to bear. But we move rhythmically, as human beings, we move sometimes closer and approach, and sometimes we need distance and go back. Sometimes we investigate, sometimes we need comfort, beauty, friendship, laughter, or rest. That this kind of dance more than we always have to move in one direction. So on a birthday, I feel the poignancy of time, and also the fragility of this life. And to me, it seems like it keeps changing, regardless of whether I'm ready, you're ready. Just things keep moving. Again, in different ways, but it keeps moving. And yet, here we are, gathering, reflecting, listening, meditating, and trying to understand our lives without becoming defined by them. This one I feel like trying to soften without disappearing, and expanding our worlds by showing up as spiritual friends together today. So this is how I would language the atmosphere of compassion for today. Okay, I will end here. And I will welcome